Harry Potter had only been at Hogwarts for a few months. He had already faced a troll. He had discovered that someone was trying to steal the Philosopher's Stone. And now, for the first time, he was about to play in an official Quidditch match. Gryffindor versus Slytherin. The stands were packed. Students waved red and gold banners. The Slytherins shouted insults across the stadium. Harry sat on his broom, trying to ignore the nervous feeling in his stomach. Oliver Wood flew beside him. "Remember, Harry, keep your eyes on the snitch." Harry nodded. "I will." Madame Hooch raised her whistle. The match began. The quaffle shot into the air. Players rushed across the field. Bludgers flew between them. Harry climbed higher, searching for the golden snitch. Then he saw it. A tiny flash of gold. The snitch flew past his shoulder. Harry immediately chased it. He pushed his broom faster. The crowd roared. But something was wrong. Harry's broom suddenly shook. Hard. He grabbed the handle. What is happening? The broom jerked violently. Harry nearly fell. Below him, Hermione noticed it. That broom! Ron looked up. That's not normal. Hermione's eyes widened. Someone is controlling it. Professor McGonagall stood immediately. Across the stadium, Professor Quirrell sat nervously. His eyes were fixed on Harry. His lips moved silently. Harry's broom suddenly shot upward. Harry screamed. He had no control. The broom climbed higher and higher. Then it turned downward, straight toward the ground. The entire stadium went silent. Harry pulled desperately at the handle. Nothing happened. He was falling. Fast. The ground was getting closer. Harry closed his eyes. He thought this was the end. Then he heard something. A strange sound. Thwip. A thin white web shot through the air. It wrapped around Harry's broom. The broom stopped for a fraction of a second. Harry opened his eyes. A figure was swinging between the Hogwarts towers. Red and blue, moving impossibly fast. The figure released the web and swung directly toward Harry. Harry stared. What? The stranger reached him. He grabbed the back of Harry's broom with one hand. Hang on. Harry grabbed the handle with both hands. The stranger pulled. The broom continued falling. The stranger fired another web. Then another. One attached to a tower. Another attached to a stone wall. The sudden tension slowed the fall. The stranger pulled with all his strength. The broom stopped only a few feet above the ground. Harry's eyes widened. He was alive. The mysterious figure landed beside him. He wore a red and blue suit. His face was covered by a mask. Harry stared at him. Who are you? The stranger looked at the broom. Then at Harry. Right now. He pointed toward the sky. I'm the guy making sure you don't become a very unpleasant stain on the Quidditch field. Harry stared at him. The stranger looked around. Hundreds of students were staring. Teachers were frozen in shock. Even Dumbledore was standing. The stranger slowly looked up at the castle. Okay. He paused. This definitely isn't New York. Harry blinked. What's New York? The stranger looked at him. Long story. Then his spider sense suddenly screamed. Something dangerous was nearby. His head turned toward the stands. His eyes locked onto Professor Quirrell. Quirrell was still whispering. The stranger's expression became serious. Harry. Yes. Do you know that guy? Harry looked toward Quirrell. Professor Quirrell. The stranger stared at him. Yeah. He slowly looked back at Harry. Something about him is seriously creepy. Quirrell's spell intensified. Harry's broom suddenly moved again. This time it shot toward the sky. The stranger grabbed Harry. Hold on. They flew upward. Harry grabbed the stranger's arm. Where are we going? Away from the guy trying to turn you into a lawn ornament. The stranger fired a web toward one of the towers. They swung around it. Harry looked down. The entire Quidditch stadium was beneath them. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. He was flying without his broom. The stranger released the web. They swung toward another tower. Harry shouted. This is incredible. The stranger laughed. Glad you're enjoying it. Harry looked at him. Are you a wizard? The stranger shook his head. Nope. Then how can you do this? The stranger looked at his hands. Science. Harry frowned. What's science? The stranger paused. Another long story. He fired another web. They swung around the castle. Then the stranger landed Harry safely on a stone tower. Harry looked down. His broom had crashed into the grass below. The Quidditch match had completely stopped. Nobody was cheering anymore. Nobody was shouting. Every student was staring at the masked stranger. Dumbledore slowly walked onto the field. Professor McGonagall stood beside him. Snape stared at the stranger with suspicion. Ron looked at Hermione. "Did you see that?" Hermione nodded. "I saw everything." Ron pointed toward the stranger. "Who is he?" Hermione shook her head. "I have absolutely no idea." The stranger jumped from the tower. Everyone screamed. But before he reached the ground, he fired a web. He swung safely toward the field. He landed beside Harry. Harry looked at him. "You saved me." The stranger looked at Harry. "Yeah." Harry smiled. "Thank you." The stranger nodded. "No problem." Then Dumbledore approached. He looked at the stranger carefully. "You are certainly not a wizard." The stranger shook his head. "No." Dumbledore studied him. "Then what exactly are you?" The stranger looked around at Hogwarts. He sighed. "That's another really long story." Harry smiled. For the first time since his broom had gone out of control, he felt safe. But somewhere across the stadium, Professor Quirrell was terrified, because the stranger had done something no wizard had expected. He had broken the curse controlling Harry's broom. And worse, he had seen Quirrell. The mysterious stranger had not come to Hogwarts by accident. Something had brought him there, and whatever that force was, it had arrived just in time to save Harry Potter. His name was Peter Parker, but in his world, people knew him by another name, Spiderman. The Quidditch stadium had gone completely silent. Harry stood beside the mysterious stranger. Hundreds of students stared at him. Nobody knew what to say. A few Slytherins pointed toward him. "Is that some kind of muggle? Look at his clothes. Where did he come from?" Ron leaned toward Hermione. "Do you know what he is?" Hermione shook her head. "No." Ron looked at the stranger again. "He just caught Harry while he was falling from the sky. I noticed." "That doesn't answer my question." Hermione frowned. "I don't have an answer." The stranger looked around. He seemed just as confused as everyone else. He slowly raised his hands. "Okay, everyone, let's calm down." Nobody moved. The stranger looked at Harry. "Do they normally stare at people like this?" Harry nodded. "Sometimes." "Great." The stranger looked at the castle. Very welcoming place. Harry couldn't help smiling. Then Professor McGonagall stepped forward. "Who are you?" The stranger looked at her. "That's a complicated question." McGonagall's eyes narrowed. "Try me." The stranger sighed. "My name is Peter." Harry looked at him. "Peter what?" Peter paused. "Just Peter." Ron whispered to Hermione. "That's suspicious." Hermione nodded. "Very." Professor Snape walked toward them. His black robes moved behind him. His eyes remained fixed on Peter. "You have entered Hogwarts without permission." Peter looked at him. "I didn't exactly choose to come here." Snape's expression didn't change. "You expect us to believe that?" Peter looked around. "Honestly," he pointed toward the sky. "I was swinging through New York a few minutes ago." Everyone stared. Peter continued. "Then everything went bright." He pointed toward Hogwarts. "And now I'm here." Ron whispered. "What's New York?" Hermione whispered back. "I think it's a Muggle city." Ron looked impressed. "So he's a Muggle?" Hermione shook her head. "Muggles can't do what he just did." Peter looked toward them. "Are you two talking about me?" Ron immediately looked away. "No." Peter smiled beneath his mask. "Sure." Harry stepped forward. "You really aren't a wizard?" Peter shook his head. "No." Harry looked at his hands. "Then how can you do magic?" Peter looked at him. "I don't." He raised one hand. "These aren't spells." A thin web shot from his wrist. It attached itself to a nearby goalpost. Peter pulled it. The goalpost shook slightly. Everyone gasped. Peter released the web. "It's science." Hermione's eyes widened. "What kind of science?" Peter looked at her. "That's a much longer conversation." Hermione immediately looked interested. Harry smiled. Peter noticed. "What?" Harry shook his head. "Nothing." Peter looked around again. Then he noticed the broken broom lying on the ground. His expression changed. He walked toward it. Harry followed. Peter crouched beside the broom. "That's what was trying to kill you?" Harry nodded. Peter touched the broom carefully. "This wasn't an accident." Harry frowned. "What do you mean?" Peter looked at him. "Someone was controlling it." Harry looked toward the professors. "Can you tell who?" Peter slowly stood. "Not yet." Snape stepped forward. Then perhaps you should stop pretending you understand things you clearly do not. Peter turned toward Snape. I understand one thing. Snape raised an eyebrow. Peter pointed at Harry. Someone tried to kill him. Snape's expression hardened. That is a serious accusation. Peter nodded. Yeah. He looked toward the stands. And whoever did it is still here. Everyone became silent. Peter closed his eyes. He listened. The stadium was filled with hundreds of heartbeats. Students, teachers, players. Then he heard something different. A nervous heartbeat. Fast. Uneven. Peter opened his eyes. His head turned toward the professors. His eyes stopped on Professor Quirrell. Quirrell immediately looked away. Peter stared at him. Harry noticed. What is it? Peter whispered. That guy. Harry looked at Quirrell. Professor Quirrell? Peter nodded. Something is wrong with him. Harry frowned. Why? Peter didn't answer immediately. His spider sense was screaming again. He had learned to trust it. Whenever danger was near, something inside him warned him. It had saved his life countless times. And right now it was warning him about Quirrell. Peter slowly walked toward the professor. Quirrell took a step backward. Snape noticed. Enough. Peter stopped. Snape stood between Peter and Quirrell. You will not threaten a member of this staff. Peter raised his hands. I'm not threatening anyone. He pointed at Quirrell. I'm just saying that guy gives me a really bad feeling. Quirrell looked terrified. Harry noticed. But before anyone could say anything, Dumbledore stepped forward. That will be enough. Peter looked at him. Dumbledore's eyes were calm. But Peter noticed something. The old wizard was studying him carefully. Not like an enemy, like a puzzle. Dumbledore turned toward the students. The match is over. A loud groan came from the Gryffindor stands. Ron shouted. But, Professor. McGonagall looked at him. Mr. Weasley. Ron immediately sat down. Dumbledore looked at Harry. Harry, come with me. Harry nodded. Peter stepped forward. I'm coming too. Snape immediately objected. Absolutely not. Peter looked at him. Why? You are an unknown magical threat. Peter stared at Snape. I'm not magical. Snape's eyes narrowed. That remains to be seen. Peter looked at Harry. Does he always talk like this? Harry tried not to laugh. Ron couldn't. Snape turned toward Ron. Weasley. Ron stopped laughing immediately. Dumbledore raised his hand. Peter may accompany Harry. Snape looked surprised. Albus. I said he may accompany him. Dumbledore looked directly at Peter. But I have one condition. Peter nodded. What is it? You will not use your abilities against any student or professor unless someone is in immediate danger. Peter nodded. Deal. Dumbledore turned toward Harry. Come. Harry followed. Peter walked beside him. Ron and Hermione followed behind. As they entered the castle, Harry looked at Peter. So where are you really from? Peter looked at him. New York. Harry nodded. What is it like? Peter smiled. Loud. Harry laughed. Peter continued. Very crowded. He paused. And there are fewer castles. Harry looked impressed. Do you fight dark wizards? Peter laughed. Not usually. What do you fight? Peter thought for a moment. People who make bad choices. Harry nodded. We have a lot of those here. Peter smiled. I noticed. They continued through the corridor. Hermione finally spoke. Peter. He turned. Yes. Your abilities. What about them? Are they natural? Peter paused. Sort of. Hermione waited. Peter sighed. I was bitten by a genetically modified spider. Hermione stared. Ron stopped walking. You were bitten by a spider? Peter nodded. And now you can climb walls? Yes. Shoot webs? Yes. Sense danger? Yes. Ron looked at Hermione. That's completely insane. Hermione nodded. Very. Harry looked at Peter. Does it hurt? Peter became quiet. Not anymore. Harry noticed the change in his voice. He didn't ask another question. They reached a large corridor. Dumbledore stopped. Peter suddenly stopped too. His head turned. Harry noticed. What is it? Peter looked toward a dark passage. I heard something. Everyone became quiet. Nothing happened. Peter took one step forward. Then another. A small black spider crawled from the shadows. Peter looked down. He almost laughed. You've got to be kidding me. Ron looked confused. What? Peter pointed at the spider. Nothing. The spider crawled away. Peter watched it disappear. For some reason, he felt uneasy. Dumbledore noticed. You sensed something? Peter nodded. Maybe. Dumbledore looked toward the corridor. Then toward Harry. Something had changed. Peter had arrived at Hogwarts. Harry had survived his first Quidditch match. But neither of them knew that their meeting was only the beginning. Because deep beneath Hogwarts, something had awakened. Something that had felt Peter's arrival. And something that wanted him gone. That night, while Harry slept in Gryffindor Tower, Peter stood alone near the castle windows. He looked toward the forbidden forest. The moonlight reflected off the trees. Then Peter heard it. A whisper. Not from the castle. Not from the forest. From somewhere between the two worlds. Peter Parker. Peter froze. His spider sense exploded. He turned around. Nobody was there. Then the whisper came again. Peter Parker. Peter slowly raised his hands. Webs ready. His eyes scanned the corridor. Okay, he whispered. This is officially getting weird. Far away, beneath Hogwarts, a dark figure opened its eyes. And for the first time in years, something inside the castle smiled. Peter had spent the entire night awake. Something had called his name. Something inside Hogwarts knew who he was. The next morning, Harry found him near the Great Hall. You didn't sleep? Not really. Why? Peter looked toward the castle. I heard someone calling my name. Harry frowned. Who? I don't know. Harry suggested they speak to Dumbledore. A few minutes later, Harry, Ron, Hermione, Peter, and Dumbledore stood inside his office. Peter explained what had happened. Dumbledore listened carefully. Then he said something that made everyone nervous. Your arrival created a connection between our worlds. Peter frowned. You mean a portal? Something like it. Hermione asked. Why would Peter create a portal? Dumbledore looked at her. Because magic reacts to things it does not understand. Peter crossed his arms. And who called my name? Dumbledore looked toward the floor. I believe the answer is beneath Hogwarts. Ron immediately shook his head. I don't like the sound of that. Dumbledore opened a drawer and removed an old silver key. Years ago, a chamber beneath Hogwarts was sealed. Harry asked, What's inside? No one knows. That night, the group followed Dumbledore beneath the castle. They eventually reached a huge stone door covered in strange symbols. Dumbledore used the silver key. The door opened. Inside was a massive underground chamber. At its center stood a strange black machine. Blue energy moved through it. Peter stared. I've never seen this exact technology before. Hermione examined the symbols. These aren't magical runes. Peter nodded. Exactly. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber. Very good. A dark figure stepped from the shadows. Dumbledore raised his wand. Who are you? The stranger laughed. Someone who brought Peter Parker here. Peter's expression changed. You? The stranger nodded. I needed you to open the connection between worlds. Harry raised his wand. Why? The stranger pointed toward the machine. Because when the portal opens completely, your world and Peter's world will become one. Dumbledore stepped forward. That will not happen. The machine suddenly activated. A portal appeared above it. Peter could see New York through the opening. His home. His world. Peter stared. The stranger smiled. Help me open it, and you can go home. Peter looked at Harry. Then at the portal. For a moment he was tempted. Then he shook his head. No. The stranger raised his wand. Harry was suddenly lifted into the air. Then I will use him. Peter fired webs. The stranger blasted them away. Peter crashed into a wall. Harry shouted. Peter! Peter stood again. He looked at Harry. I'm okay. Harry raised his wand. Expelliarmus. The stranger's wand flew away. Ron caught it. Got it. Peter swung toward the machine. The portal was growing. Peter grabbed the machine's central core. Energy burned through his gloves. He screamed. Harry ran toward him. Peter shouted. Stay back. Harry grabbed his arm. I'm not leaving you. Peter looked at him. Then he smiled. Okay. Together they pulled. Harry raised his wand. Expelliarmus. The spell struck the machine. Peter pulled with everything he had. The core shattered. The portal exploded. Everyone was thrown backward. Then silence. The machine was destroyed. The portal was gone. Peter slowly stood. Harry was safe. Hermione and Ron were safe. Dumbledore looked at Peter. The connection is closed. Peter looked toward the empty space where the portal had been. So I'm stuck here? Dumbledore smiled. For now. Peter looked at Harry. Harry smiled. Maybe Hogwarts isn't so bad. Peter laughed. Yeah. He looked around the chamber. I'm starting to agree. The next morning, everyone at Hogwarts knew what had happened. Peter Parker had fought dark magic without a wand. He had protected Harry. He had helped save Hogwarts. Ron became Peter's biggest fan. Hermione wanted to understand his abilities. Even Neville wanted to see his web shooters. But Snape remained suspicious. One morning, Snape stopped Peter in the corridor. You are a dangerous anomaly. Peter smiled. Good morning to you too. You should not be here. Peter looked around. I've heard that before. Snape walked away. Peter noticed something in his hand. A small potion bottle. Peter looked surprised. Harry approached. What is it? Your professor secretly gave me medicine. Harry smiled. Don't tell anyone. Peter laughed. I won't. Days passed. Peter became part of Hogwarts life. He learned about magic. Harry learned about science. Hermione studied Peter's web shooters. Ron discovered that Peter could eat almost as much as he could. Peter even joined Harry during Quidditch practice. Harry flew across the field. Peter swung between the towers. The students cheered. Harry chased the golden snitch. Peter followed him through the air. Harry caught it. Peter gave him a high five. You're getting good. Harry smiled. I had a great teacher. Peter shook his head. You didn't need me for that. Harry looked at him. Maybe. He paused. But I needed you that day. Peter smiled. Then I guess we're even. That evening, Harry and Peter stood on the astronomy tower. Harry looked at the stars. Do you still want to go home? Peter nodded. Every day. Harry became quiet. Peter noticed. You don't want me to leave. Harry shook his head. No. Peter smiled. I understand. Suddenly, a golden light appeared in the sky. Portal. It showed New York. Peter stared. His home was right there. Harry looked at him. Go. Peter looked at Harry. You're sure? Harry nodded. You saved me when I needed you. He smiled. Now you need to go home. Peter removed the Hogwarts badge Harry had given him. He tried to return it. Harry shook his head. Keep it. Peter smiled. So I remember? So you know where to come back. Peter stepped toward the portal. Then he turned. Harry. Harry looked at him. Yeah. Peter raised his hand. Whenever you're in trouble. Harry smiled. I know. Peter disappeared through the portal. The light faded. Harry stood beneath the stars. Ron and Hermione joined him. Do you think he'll come back? Ron asked. Harry smiled. I know he will. Far away, Peter Parker landed on a New York rooftop. He looked at the Hogwarts badge in his hand. He smiled. Then his spider sense activated. Something dangerous was happening in the city. Peter pulled down his mask. Looks like I'm back. He fired a web. Thwip. Peter swung into the night. Back at Hogwarts, Harry looked toward the Quidditch field. The golden snitch flew through the air. Harry grabbed his broom. This time he chased it without fear. Because he knew something now. Heroes could come from anywhere. And sometimes your greatest friend could come from another world.